Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Jim here, and hey, Phyllis. Yeah, we're on now. Phyllis, I'm hoping if you could chat me back real quick. Tell me, can you hear me? Am I audible? Brad Coleman just got here. Phyllis, could you give me a quick chat back? Let me know. All right, cool. Thanks, Phyllis. You hear me coming in loud and clear. Hey, there's a little over a dozen of you on there, and I do appreciate you getting there on time. I want to get rocking and rolling. We've got a lot to cover. As you see on the screen, it is Sandler Tactics. There's quite a few. I've pulled out about 17 assorted techniques and/or strategies to cover with you today. So we're going to be covering, a dozen and a half different Sandler. I don't know if the word's moves, but tools that you can use, whether it be when you're in front of a customer, in front of a prospective customer, or just tools that you could use on your own. It's something that's going to help you. So I want to cover those today. For those of you that were with us, and it just seems like, what was it, 4 days ago? It was Monday of this week. I was thinking to myself, my goodness, this is like deja vu. I was just with the DSM group, but it was just earlier this week. And if you were on the phone earlier this week, which many of you were, you might recall that we covered the monetization of the pain step, how to monetize pain, or at least the idea that it's something that is very, very important that we focus on so that we can make sure that we build a big enough business case around the customer using New Millennium and not basing everything solely on the cheapest price. So we need to monetize pain, and monetizing pain is what it is costing the fabricator, if you will, or the contractor, what it's costing them to have the problem that they're hoping New Millennium can rectify. And so that is as I said on Monday, it's a very, very frequently overlooked area of developing pain. Most times, people hear a problem, people hear some kind of a concern or a challenge from a customer, prospective customer, and immediately we want to jump in and be the rescuer, and we jump in and tell them how we would fix it, how we would become their knight in shining armor, what we would charge them, how we would do it for them. Unfortunately, we don't do a good enough job staying in the pain step and quantifying or monetizing their pain. And that's what we discussed on Monday. So if any of you have any questions about it and want to take it offline, I would love to help you out with that. And if you want to kind of role play some of the talks and some of the tracks through that, I'd be more than happy to do that. Or if any of you have some good examples of monetizing or quantifying pain with your customers or with a project that you're working on and want to share it, happy to hear the successes of pain monetization, because I think it's frequently overlooked. Again, based on the fact that we're avoidant, we're quite worried about bringing money up at the wrong place with the people that we don't believe we have the right to bring it up. So that's what we talked about this past Monday. So if anybody's got a good story about it, circle back around with me. I want to talk to you about it and hear what you had done. Let's talk about these tactics. These tactics. Now, this submarine, as you've all seen it countless times, this is more on the technique side, and the tactics that we're going to talk about are going to incorporate a lot of these different components. So this is primarily on the tactical side. Now, these success triangles, we've covered this, maybe to in some of your mind, we may have covered them ad nauseum. However, I believe that it's very, very important when you're looking at your sales toolbox that you know which drawer or which department of your toolbox you're pulling your tools or your tactics out of. And they are going to come in one of these three sections of your sales success. It's either your behavior, your attitude, or your technique. All of these tactics are going to either they're going to fall into one of those three categories. Either behaviorally, they need to be done attitudinally and how you think about it, or tactically, what you're saying, how you're saying it. So again, and whether it doesn't have to be Sandler, but any type of sales practice that you're using or employing is going to fall into one of those three categories: what you're doing, what you're thinking, and what you're saying. So, or it can be blended. It can be kind of blended. It could be a behavior attitude. It could be an attitude technique. It could be a behavior technique. So it doesn't mean that it has to be one and only one. They can overlap in many, many instances. Let's jump into the very first one that I want to cover with you. We've never really spoken about this. It's called, this tactic's called the 5 steps to the truth. And this is the idea behind 5 steps to the truth is really it's to test the validity of any kind of stall or put off that you're getting from a customer or from a prospective customer. We're trying to get to the nitty-gritty, to the truth. We hear a lot of times, we hear a lot of put-offs, a lot of stalls, and a lot of, let's say, this kind of wishy-washy responses from prospective projects, and it's hard to overcome a stall or a put-off. And so I want us to be aware that there are some things, and we've broken these things down into 5 steps to really get to the nitty-gritty, to the truth. Now, if somebody says to me, or if somebody says to you, hey, I need to think this thing over, or I've got your project, or I've got your proposal, I've got your quote. Hey, I need to think this thing over. Can I give you a call in a week? And then step number 1 is agree. And what I have there is be traditional. So agree with them. And we'll talk about it in a little bit. It's called matching and leading. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to match them. You're not going to fight them. You're going to agree with them. The purpose of agreeing with them is not to look, like you're going to be defensive on their answer, or you're going to try to do something like tricky or slick. But you want to just agree with them. Hey, I appreciate you telling me it. Okay, Charlie, thanks for the time. How much time do you think you're going to need, to mull this thing over or to think it over? So step 1, agree, and then how much time do you think you're going to need? Can I give you a shot in about a week? So that's pretty traditional. It looks as though the idea here is I'm trying to reduce any kind of fear or defensiveness on the part of the prospect. How much time do you think you need to think it over? Can I give you a shot in about a week or so? Pretty traditional. Now, step two, that's the permission step. And the permission step is, if I say, Charlie, can I ask you kind of a tough question? Hopefully it's not going to come out the wrong way. And you have to ask permission to ask a tough question. And then you want to soften it, and you've got to kind of fall short. Hopefully it's not going to come out the wrong way. The likelihood is in the 90-some percentile, maybe 99% of the time, when you ask permission, hey, Charlie, can I ask you kind of a tough question? Hopefully it's not going to come out the wrong way. people will inevitably grant you the permission to ask a tough question, right? And then you're trying to kind of couch it, couch it where hopefully it doesn't come out the wrong way. And people say, sure, absolutely, Jim. Yeah, what is it? And then step 3, you make it third party. And so what you're trying to do is protect them. And that's why I say safe. Make it third party. It's safe. And I say is, and so what my response would be, hey, Charlie, it's probably not the case here. However, and then go into step 4, you tell them the gentle truth. In my experience, when someone tells me they need to think it over, and after we've invested time with each other for multiple meetings, and I may be way off base here, but usually it means somewhere along the way I missed the mark, and you've really decided not to move forward. And are you just too nice to tell me that? So what I'm doing is I'm couching it in that third-party story because I want to protect them and I want to blame this on other people. But I need to do what I call a takeaway, where I say it's probably not the case here, which is a nice way to kind of, not point the finger at the customer or the prospective customer. So I say it's probably not the case here. However, in my experience, and then I'm going into third party, in my experience, when someone tells me they need to think it over after we've invested the time, after we've thought this thing through, we've looked at the different numbers, I may be way off base here, but it usually means that somewhere along the way, I missed the mark. So blame it on yourself. I missed the mark. We went off tracks. I screwed something up, and you've already decided not to move forward with New Mill. Are you just too nice? And you're just too nice to tell me that? Is that the case? So, and then step 5 is, step 5 is then ask them. I'm sort of getting the feeling, that feeling, and I was wondering, is that the case here? So in other words, it's happened to me before, where people have told me that they want to think it over, or they want to do this, they want to do that, and usually it means somewhere along the way I've dropped the ball, I've missed the mark, and they've already decided not to move this forward. But they're just too nice of a person to flat out tell me that that's the case, that I screwed things up. And I guess I'm kind of wondering, is that what's going on here in this case? So in other words, I'm trying in my 5 steps to the truth to flesh out what's really taking place. And if they say to me, well, as a matter of fact, Jim, yeah, that's the case here. You know what? We've already decided to go a different direction. And yeah, there's a couple of things that we were not real pleased and happy about. And we have decided to go in a different direction. And then at least I know I can deal with the truth. I can deal with the truth. What I can't deal with is the unknown. Now, on the other hand, they may say, oh, no, absolutely not. If we decided not to go forward, we would flat out tell you. And I would then, to that response, say, well, I appreciate that. The last thing I would ever want to have is you being a nice guy, afraid of hurting my feelings and telling me, that you need some more time, or things just aren't lined up just yet, and we need to push this kind of down the road, when in reality, you guys have already decided that. And what I don't want you to do is to avoid telling me if we should just close the file here. So the 5 steps to the truth is really a gutsy move. It's a gutsy move because what it's causing us to do is call out the prospect and ask them to be straight with us in a very, very nurturing way. You always want to do these tactics very nurturingly, right? So step 1, agree with whatever they want to do, permission to ask a tough question, protect them by making it a third-party story. Probably not the case here, however. Step 4, tell the story. Step 5, ask the question. And then, like, if you went to step 6 or 7, it would be deal with the response. Either, yeah, that's the case. We've decided, not to move forward, and then, deal with the closing of the file, and or if they say, no, that's not the case here, say, all right, well, let's talk then about what specific things that you're needing to think over other than price. Where are we still not on track? Hey, Bill Kennedy, I see you sent me a chat that is having audio issues. Not sure if anybody else is. And I know last week, or this past Monday, my phone went, my audio connection went haywire. Thanks, Dale. So I apologize if that is the case again. This is nutty how these webinar things can screw up based on audio. Let me jump into, that was 5 steps to the truth. If there's any questions on that, please chat, send me a question under the chat box, and I will, I'll clarify or help you understand any of these. Now, let me share with you, here's another of the tactics that I'm going to cover is the take it to know message, or also known as close the file message. Take it to know message or close the file message. Now this is, this screen is showing you kind of the look of what the voicemail that you would leave would sound like. So it is a message, and this can be either a voice message, it can be an email message. So take it to know is when you have a deal that seems to be kind of stuck in that neutral position, it's not going forward, it's not going back, it's just stuck. The best way to unstick it is take it away from them. So that's that negative reversing. So take it away, and then this is a take it to know, or as we call it, to close the file message. So it would be like, hey, Steve, John Smith here from New Millennium. Hey, I know when we met a few weeks back, there seemed to be some interest in moving forward with us. My sense is that perhaps priorities have shifted or things may have changed, and at this point you've decided there's zero interest in moving forward with New Mill. If that's the case, I do not want you to be uncomfortable saying so. It's okay. If you can give me a quick call back, I'll close your file. Steve, it's John Smith, New Millennium, 412-928-9933. Again, 412-928-9933. Click. So that take it to know message, or close the file message, as we oftentimes call it, is meant to do 2 things: to get this thing back on track, or to find out that if the person says, we have, we have zero interest in moving forward, or we've gone in another direction, and I want to tell them that it's okay to tell me that. I do not want you to be uncomfortable saying so. It's okay. In other words, you're not going to hurt my feelings by telling me that you went into a different direction. Will I like that? No, absolutely not. However, some will, some won't. So what? Stick with it if someone else is waiting. But that is, and I believe that, and I know a lot of clients of mine who have used this take it to know message or the close the file message have said it's amazing how many people who I have left countless messages, hey, just checking in, just wanted to know if there's any questions, just seeing if you guys, so start making unjust calls. Don't do those, just checking in, just following up, just this, just that, because that sounds pretty much like everybody else who's selling them is just checking in, just following up. Just wanted to know if there are any questions, blah, 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 blah. They're not accustomed, people are not accustomed to these closing of the file type of messages or take it to know. People inherently do not want their files to be closed. They do not want their files to be closed. They don't like the finality of having their file closed on them. And so that's what kind of prompts them to say, because if they did not want their file to be closed, there's a very, very good likelihood they'll circle back right away and say, oh, hey, hey, John, this is Steve calling. Hey, listen, no, hey, we still have an interest. Please don't close the file. Here's where we are with this. We need to get them off of the neutral position in moving. Now, a couple of points I want to make on this message. And if you see in the middle of that, in that slide, I have zero interest highlighted or capitalized. And you've decided there is zero interest. The reason that I put zero interest is it's very cut and dry. Very cut and dry. And so, and if I say, and at this point you've decided that there's zero interest in moving forward, very, very rarely do people have zero interest and they want to come back and say, hey, no, don't close the file. We do have some interest. We just need to get this, that, and the other thing wrapped up. So I'm trying to make it a, let's say, on the polar extreme. You've already decided there's zero interest in moving forward. I know that we talked, there seemed to be some interest in moving forward. My sense is that perhaps some priorities have shifted or things have changed, and at this point you decided there's zero interest in moving forward with Mill. If that's the case, I do not want you to be uncomfortable saying so. In other words, you are surrendering to a point. You're surrendering to the fact that they've decided to move in a different direction, and it's not with Mill. Because if it was with Mill, they would have let you know. It's very, 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 very cool how quick. And as a matter of fact, I know I use this kind of take it to know, close the file message in my kind of pre-Sandler days, back when I was a student of Sandler. And when I first learned this tactic, and this was back in the days when I did product identification, there was a company that I was, that asked me to put together a proposal to do some, I don't know, maybe 500, 1,000 dealer banners. It was an archery shop, and they were selling. It was an archery manufacturer, Matthews Archery, and what they were doing is they wanted to supply all their dealers with the Matthews banners, and so they had me quote and do up a design of the Matthews banner, and I sent that over, and I hadn't heard, didn't hear anything from them. Gave them a quote, did the old, if you know the 4 steps of the buyer system, the lie, steal, lie, hide. They took my numbers, they took my, kind of my artwork, if you would, and my numbers, and then they told me they were going to get back with me. That was step 3. That was, lie, steal, lie again. And then they went into the hide mode. In order to get people out of the hide mode, so what I did is I took this gentleman to know, and I called him up, and I said, hey, Jeff, Jim Gaffney calling. Hey, I know when you and I talked earlier this week, it seemed to be that you guys were, pretty anxious to get this banner project underway and get them out to the dealers. I've left you a couple, 2, 3 voice messages. Haven't heard anything back. My guess is that you guys have either decided not to go forward with the banners, or you have. It's just that you selected another supplier. Was hoping you would let me know which of the 2 it was that you decided not to do the banners or went with a different banner supplier. I don't want you to be uncomfortable telling me which of the 2 it is. Give me a quick call back so that I know it's okay to close your file. And so I had called this individual probably 3, 4 times, never heard a thing back. No sooner did I leave that message that within under 5 minutes, my phone was ringing, and it was this guy. Jeff calls back. Hey, Jeff, it's Jim at Matthews Archery. I said, hey, Jeff, just left a message. He said, yeah, don't close the file. Hey, absolutely. No, it's my fault, not yours. We had some other things come up that I had to deal with, had to take care of. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead here's the purchase order. I want to get those banners underway. Now, and so, long story is I got the job, I got the project, and it was great. However, it took one of those close the file, take it to no type of messages to get Jeff to get off of his rear end and to put this back kind of on his plate. It was on my plate. It just wasn't in front of him. I had to kind of like get permission to close the file. He didn't want it to be closed because he then all of a sudden realized, hey, there's a priority to that thing. I better get this thing addressed, and called me back probably in under 5 minutes. So very, very interesting. And I would highly recommend that you use this in your audio messages and or your email messages. Any questions on that? Please feel free to either chat me or circle back around with me, and maybe we can do a little bit of role playing on it, or at least at the very least hear your message, and then I can critique it and maybe enhance it. Next one. Now this tactic, the selling after the no tactic. So they tell you that it's over, right? You got a no. They said, hey, we've decided to go a different direction. And then after that, after you get a no, this is what happens after no. Because really, selling really doesn't happen until after the no. And so I go through and I set some little phrases up here for you to reference. And so I would say, hey, Rick, now that it's over, can I take my sales hat off for a minute? So when I say now that it's over, what I want Rick to understand is I am now conceding that it's over. So now that it's over, so now that that's behind us, can I take my sales hat off? Now, why do I say, can I take my sales hat off? So it's like, hey, just two guys talking, one-on-one. Now that it's over, can I take my sales hat off and put my just, man-to-man hat on? Can I take my sales hat? And then I would keep going with, I'd say, hey, Rick, take everything I say with a grain of salt. It will probably sound pretty self-serving, though. Here's what I heard you say initially. This was some of the problems that you had. You were getting late on your steel packages. You weren't real happy with the service and support you were getting, and these are some of the problems and challenges that you told me about. So what you want to do is review some of those problems that he might have told you. Maybe it was the day before, the week before, the month before, but somehow, some way, he has a problem that he was hoping that New Millennium is going to be able to address. And then you need to pull that back out. Now that it's over, you can say anything. Hey, take whatever I said with a grain of salt. It's probably going to sound very self-serving. Here's what I think I heard you say, 2 weeks ago when we first met. Pain, 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 pain. This is what the problem's costing me. This is what you've done to address it, blah, 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 blah. Actually, you reiterate everything that he told you back in your first or second meeting together or conversation. And then once you do that and say, can I help you with that? And say, listen, that's the kind of stuff that we do. I can help you with that kind of stuff. Rick, you should work with me. You should work with New Millennium on that stuff. No, I said Marty. Rick, work with me. So in other words, after you get and then as I have on there, then shut up. That's about as much as you want to lay out after you get to know. Hey, now that it's over, can I take my sales hat off and be just a pure consultant? Take everything I say with a grain of salt. It's probably going to sound self-serving, but here's what I heard you say when we first met. Yeah, this problem, it's costing me this. This is how frequently it's happening. This is a pain in your butt. You're personally impacted by it. I can help you with that. You should work with us. You should work with New Millennium on it. Rick, work with me. And then go quiet. Have him respond to, now that it's over, you can frankly say, now of course it's got to be respectful. Don't be disrespectful when you get the no. But now that it's over, can I tell you what's going on? And can I say that you're making a terrible mistake without you getting ticked off at me? And it's going to sound self-serving for me, but can I tell you that? Because this is what I heard you say. So selling after the no, and I'm not, nor would I ever suggest that we should be happy that we get a no. However, when you get a no, you're not done. You're not done when you get a no. You've got to, now that it's over, and that is always a good line. Now that it's over, can I take my sales hat off for a minute and be straight up with you? People are very, very open that now that it's over, and the whole idea of now that it's over, it takes any kind of pressure that they were feeling, and it reduces it, or it just completely eliminates any pressure that they might have been feeling. Now that it's over, can I take my sales hat off? And it's like, let's be person to person about this. Not DSM to prospect. Now that it's over, let me take my sales hat off and tell you what I think I'm seeing here. It's crazy. But what I heard you say is you got this problem, this problem, this problem. I can help you with that kind of stuff. You should work with us. Work with me. And then shut up. Let him respond. Now, will that get you every deal? No. But I'll tell you what, many times you'll start to get you'll kind of get deeper penetration into their decision making. And you'll find out, well, what the real reason was that they decided to go in a different direction. Because unless you do that, they say, hey, you guys are too high, maybe next time, click. Hey, now that it's over, I appreciate you telling me, now it's over, can I take my sales hat off and tell you what I'm thinking, respectfully? And you could take everything I say with a grain of salt. It's probably going to sound very self-serving. They're very, very interested in your response to that. So very, very interesting how well that works for those of us who decide to sell after the no. Next one. And we've covered this. There again, this is kind of a review. This is past, present, future. This is another tactic. This is part of that whole bonding rapport, very, very beginning, understanding the customer. Make sure that you're focused on them. It's prospect first, new mill second. Hey, what were you doing before you started working here? What got you here? What do you like about what you're doing now? And what's next for you? This is making sure that you're dealing with the person's past, with what they're currently doing, and with where they're headed to. That's a very, very sound Sandler tactic that is used inside the bonding and rapport piece. Make sure that we know the answers to those questions on every one of our prospects and every one of our customers. Taking them in the past, what we doing before we worked here, right? And does that matter? Yeah, it matters. It's going to give us a little bit of history as to what they're used to, who they may have worked with, and if they had been, let's say they had been with a different fabricator, and I would like to know, hey, when you were working, who did you guys use for your joist packages? And what got you here? I mean, what caused you to make the move over from ABC to XYZ? And what do you like about what you're doing now with this company? And where do you go next? So again, past, present, and future is extremely, extremely important to understand. And plus, it shows a degree of interest on your part about them. People have a very, very good story to tell if they could find somebody to tell it to. And this shines the light on them and shows some value. It shows some value as to what they had done, what they are doing, and what they intend and what they want to see take place in the future. All right, I just got to chat. Doesn't it take a bit more doesn't it take it a bit more personal than you would like to take it? As long, I mean, it can. I want to focus on kind of the work aspect. And that's why I say, hey, what were you doing before you worked here? What line of business, where did you work before you came here to ABC Company? And what prompted you to come here? What got you here? And what do you like about what you're doing? This is not about them from a personal standpoint. This is more about them from a business and a career standpoint. I want to focus on the business bonding, and maybe if I become friends or buddies with the individual, that's great. But that doesn't necessarily mean I need to start off trying to become friends. I want to try to find a customer, and if I become friends with a customer, that's just icing on the cake. So you just have to be very, very careful. And so that was a very, very good question. Just be very cautious that you don't go down those bunny trails and turn it into a social, chit chat. And it could likely happen that way if you're not careful. That's a good question. Let's go to the next one. The next one is the upfront contract. There's 8 steps. And I know that all of you have seen or kind of been exposed to the upfront contract. I can't say it strongly enough how important and impactful the upfront contract is. There's 8 steps to it if you broke it down into its individual components. First thing is, is like, hey Steve, appreciate you having us come in. Hey, before we get started, wanted just to ensure that the time that was allocated is good on your end. We talked about spending 30, 40 minutes together. You still comfortable with that? Agree in advance to how much time you're going to spend together. And then the agenda. Steve, what was it that you were hoping to cover in the next 30 minutes together? What were you hoping that we would be able to talk about and address? Right? So his agenda or their agenda first. And then our agenda is what this next one is the agenda is, hey, be all right if I ask you some questions. Because my agenda is to get a better, thorough understanding about your business, about the particular project that you want to talk to us about. So I want to ask you a lot of questions. So what's on his agenda, and then our agenda, permission to ask questions. And then number 5, which is part of the outcome, permission to say no. And we can say, hey, Steve, and if I don't think that New Millennium is going to be a good fit for you, I'll tell you so. If I don't think we're the right candidate for this particular project, I want you to be okay if I've got to tell you that. Start with the no, that we might have to tell them we're not a good fit at New Millennium. That is very counterintuitive, and it starts to reduce the defense walls. It's kind of a freaky weird way to set that up, and that's why it's counterintuitive, because they don't expect you to say, hey, and if I don't believe that New Millennium is going to be the right supplier of this particular project, I want to tell you that. Are you okay if I have to tell you that? People will say to you, absolutely. If you don't think you can help us, I want you to tell me that. And then I would say, and do the same for me. So give them permission to say no. And say, Steve, and I would hope you would do the same for me. If for any number of reasons you don't feel that New Millennium is the right source for this particular steel package, I would want you to tell me that just straight out, just flat out tell me. Don't worry about my feelings. Just tell me. Are you okay telling me that? So in other words, I want you to be okay if I tell you, and I want you to be okay to tell me that it's not a good mutually beneficial fit together. Very, very important that we do that. Step 5, permission to say no. Step 6, permission to say yes. And on the other hand, we may get to the end of the meeting and realize, you know what, it does make some sense to move forward. Are you comfortable saying that? If you guys agree that it makes some sense, would you be okay to say, yes, let's move forward? Check them out to ensure, because if they say, well, I couldn't say that, I would have to get my colleagues involved, my partners involved, I'd have to get some other people involved, then we are trying to flesh that out early there. So can they say no? Can they say yes? If they say, yeah, I could, yeah, if we decide to move forward, we'll figure that out today. Right. And then here's what a yes would mean. And then number 7, defining what a yes means, and defining what a yes means. And that's telling them, all right, well, what we need to do is we would need to get all the drawings. We would have to do some of the work on them. We would have to get, scheduling down pat. We would have to make sure that we've got, some deposits or some agreements laid out. So you have to define what a yes means relative to what the meeting is going to be all about. And then step 8, sharing a biggest fear. This is another one that is very, let's say, unusual or counterintuitive. Is part of, a biggest fear. Let's say, for instance, you're calling on someone that's used Volcraft and is just, religiously sent all of their business over to Volcraft. This is the time when I want to bring that up. I would say, hey Tom, can I tell you what my biggest fear is going to be here? He'd say, sure, what is it? And I'd say, well, my biggest fear is no matter what New Millennium can provide and how we can provide it in the ROI that you might be able to see out of it, my biggest fear is you guys are so deeply ingrained or embedded with Volcraft that no matter what we provide, you guys would never be able to pull the trigger and go somewhere else other than Volcraft. Can we talk about that? So in other words, if you go into this project with a fear in the back of your mind or in your heart or in your gut, now is the time to bring it up. Bring it up front. And Sandra would always say, look, if you've got a bomb, you want to blow it up as quick as possible. If the bomb is, these people are kind of embedded with Volcraft, the quicker we get to that, the better off everybody is. The better off you are and the better off they are. But I want to share the biggest fear. It's very, very unusual and very counterintuitive to tell them what your biggest fear is. Hey, my biggest fear is my biggest fear is you only buy the lowest price, and we're very, very rarely the lowest price. As a matter of fact, I don't think we're ever the lowest price option out there. Can we talk about that? So in other words, if you think it's going to blow up on you, you be the one lighting the fuse instead of hoping and praying and waiting that thing doesn't blow up down the road. So that's the 8 steps of the upfront contract. Telling third-party stories. We talked about this a few webinars ago, the third-party stories. Very, very, very good technique or tactic. And then this is generally, these are some of the things that you want to do. Typically, when I talk with or I talk to, when I talk with an owner, at a steel fabricator, they share one of a few issues. And then the FUDWACA, just so you're aware, FUDWACA is an acronym for some different things. So I would say, so F is frustrated, upset, disappointed, worried, angry, concerned, or anxious. Just FUDWACA, I want you to think of FUDWACA as kind of the emotional words that you put in front of the pain. Typically when I talk to, owners of fabricating companies, they share with me a few issues. They tell me that they tend to be, frustrated because when they place an order and their steel package gets there, it never gets there when they want it. They get frustrated because it holds them, it holds the production back. It takes them off their lead time. So what I do is I tell them the frustration, the upset, or disappointed, worried, anxious, angry, concerned, or anxious, and then I lay the pain 1, 2, and 3 out, and I say, hey, are any of these issues worth a short discussion? So use your third-party stories that you have all built up over the course of years, and and build those third-party stories up to use as almost as bait, or like you're chumming the water. You're going to chum the water, and you're going to start to get people coming up to it and say, hey, you know what? Those are some things that we experience. Those are some frustrations. Those are some things that upset us. Those are some things that we become very disappointed in or worried about. So use the third-party stories. Why? Because people want to know what impacts or what problems everything else has. What does the C stand for? It stands for concern. Concern. You know, a lot of times they tell me a few issues. In some cases, they're concerned because when they've got a must-have by date or a must-install by date, they're concerned because they're looking at the calendar, looking at the clock, and they're not getting these things here. So, yeah, the C is concerned. Frustrated, upset, disappointed, worried, angry, concerned, anxious. Now, those are just examples, but they all have to be emotionally charged words. And then when I put that third-party story in, people tend to say, I know what they're talking about. We experience some of the same problems. And so it's a great way to get them talking about their problems when they hear other people have admitted to having some of the same problems. The upfront contract transition. Here are some transition, let's say, statements or questions that I put in there for you. This is just, you know, the short little terms or statements, you know, and just to kind of blend them into your upfront contract. Hey, Phyllis, thanks for inviting me in. Hey, can I make a suggestion? In my preparation, here's my thoughts of how we invest our time wisely. Please tell me if this is going to make sense for you. You know, I really want to ask you some questions about your business, about some of the things, blah, blah, blah. And so what you do is you go through, now you don't have to do these verbatim, but I want to give you just kind of the flow, the ebb and the flow of the transition. So once you are setting up your upfront contract, how you transition into the paying questions. You know, I want to ask you a few questions. Same on your side. Ask me anything you'd like to know. And at the end, one of two things are going to happen. You know, on one hand, we missed the mark. We're not a good fit. And if I don't think so, I'll tell you, and do the same for me. On the other hand, we may come to the conclusion that, you know what, we ought to be working together. And what that typically looks like is, and then you start to lay out what it is specifically that a moving forward would look like. All right, so there's a transition statement. Now, monkey's paw comes in in the presentation, and this is what I call the power of contrast. The monkey's paw, I don't know if any of you are sailors. If you're a sailor, you may know what a monkey paw is a kind of a naval term or a sailing term that they would use to connect a large ship to the pier. And a monkey's paw was, they would shoot a monkey's paw. It was a ball of rope, and they would attach a line to it and pull the line in, and attached to that line is a little bit bigger line attached to a rope, attached to a chain, and that's the way you're able to chain a large ship to a pier, because there's no sailor out there that could toss one of those chains. So the monkey's paw is getting a little bit in order to gather a lot. And the Girl Scout cookies, there was those of you that used to watch Johnny Carson. Johnny Carson years ago had a little Girl Scout on his late night show, and he brought this young girl on. You know, it's probably 12, 13-year-old girl, and she was brought on because she held the world record, or the Girl Scout record, which would be the world record for the amount of Girl Scouts cookies sold in a year. And so he brought her on, and he said, "Hey, Sally," he said, "I understand you sold some cookies, a lot of cookies." She said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, how many cookies did you sell?" She said, "I sold 2 tractor trailer loads of Girl Scout cookies." Now, 2 tractor trailer loads is far and above the average, because I think the average Girl Scout sells about 2 cases. She sold 2 tractor trailer loads of cookies. And so Johnny Carson, you know, was like throwing his pencil up in the air and laughing and carrying on. He said, how did you do that? And she said, it was simple. She said, I was going door to door and I would knock and I would ask them, I would say, hi, would you please be willing to donate $5,000 to troop number, and then she would give her, you know, her troop number, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4. And the people would say, are you crazy? $5,000 donation? There's no way in the world I can swing that. And then her response was, well, if you can't do that, then maybe you could simply buy, you know, a handful of these boxes of cookies, or at least a case of these Girl Scout cookies. Now, what the contrast is when asking for a lot, in her case, $5,000 donation to her Girl Scout troop, people were aghast and said, I can't do that. And then she would come in, well, if you can't do that, then maybe simply a case of one of these Girl Scout cookies. And then people say, well, how much is a case? Well, the case is only $200 for the entire case. Well, in contrast to the $5,000 donation, the people were gobbling up cases of cookies from this young lady. And that's the monkey's paw. When they would buy some, you know, the power of contrast, they were more inclined to go with the small offering relative to the large offering. But you always have to start the large offering first. And then when people turn down the large offering, make sure that you have a smaller offering right on the tail end of that. Very, very interesting how well that the psychology of that works, because people don't like to say no to your request. Here's another one. The let's pretend. The let's pretend move. This is very, very interesting. This is taking the future and bringing it into the present. If you want to know what's going to happen in the future, bring it into the present using let's pretend. So if someone says, well, you know what, I want to talk to my boss. I like it. However, I need to talk to my boss and get his approval for this, you know, steel package. I'd say, all right, makes sense. Let's pretend you talk to your boss and he says, yeah, let's do it. What would you do? So in other words, it's taking the future and bringing it into the present, and then find out if that happens, what would you do? By using, and you can use the words let's pretend, or let's suppose, or hey, let's fast forward. Let's say you've had a conversation with your boss and he says, sure, what are you going to do? The third one is, hey, let's pretend you had a magic wand and the perfect deck joist partner. Price aside, what does that look like? I mean, what is, you know, let's pretend, boom, you could create the perfect, you know, steel package partner, deck joist partner, right? Let's pretend you could do that. Aside of price, what would that look like? And then let them construct the ideal supply relationship. Here's the last one here. Let's pretend you get your next 2 quotes and we're not dead lowest. Right? You get your next couple of quotes in. So they say, oh, we're happy. We got your numbers. We still have to get the next 2 quotes in. All right, well, let's pretend you get your next 2 quotes in. We're not the lowest. What's going to happen? So in other words, you take the future, you bring it into the present, and then you deal with it while you're still in conversation. Because otherwise, they say, well, we still have to get, you know, 2 more quotes in. And we say, oh, okay, well, can I circle back around with you next week and see how we ended up? And then we get caught in the chase scene. So we don't want to do that. We want to use the let's pretend. Went the wrong way. The belief move. This is a neat one. The belief move. And again, I you know, in italics there, I've got what would come out of my mouth. But I'd say, hey, let me ask you this. If you really believe in your head, heart, and gut that working with New Mill was absolutely the right choice, even if we weren't low price, if you really believed we were the right choice, what would you do? So you're questioning kind of their belief, if their head, heart, and gut, and if they believed in that, in their head, heart, and gut, that working with us was absolutely the right choice, even if we weren't the lowest price. what would you do about it? You're kind of calling them out on the belief in it versus just the commoditization of it, right? And so what we're trying to do is to move away from commodity and more towards conviction. I'm just testing their conviction here. Let me talk about bracketing, and this is kind of back to the money part of the conversation. And the bracketing technique is typically we talk to fabricators that have been frustrated with service, support, delivery, quality, and what they're looking to achieve is on-time delivery, support, service, value added, and quality that meets or exceeds your expectations, which are all pleasure, pleasure, pleasure. And you can't hold me to this, but typically we're somewhere between this amount and this additional amount. Is that going to be a showstopper? So in other words, we're testing. We want to test using bracketing. We want to test their money tolerance. We want to test their money tolerance. And we're talking to a fabricator that's been frustrated with this problem, this problem, this problem, this problem. And what they're looking to achieve is, is pleasure A, B, and C. And you can't hold me to this, but typically, we're somewhere between $50,000 and $75,000. Is that going to be a showstopper for a project like this? You're testing their resolve. You're testing the money tolerance. And that's what the whole idea of bracketing is going to be for. There's much more to bracketing than just that, but at least I wanted you to be aware of that tool in your toolbox. Now, closing on a point. So when you're taking somebody through your presentation, what the heck? And the very first piece is the clarity. So when you're explaining New Millennium and you're explaining all the features, all the benefits of working with New Millennium, and you want to get some clarity, did I make sense? And was I clear when I explained how we were going to do that? So you want to make sure that there's some clarity around it. Next piece is the workable solution. Do you see this as a workable approach to what you're doing on this particular project? Do you see that as a, now if there's any kind of pushback, you want to know it. Now, fit for you. Will it work in your environment? Are there any questions? And if they say, yeah, I've got a question, boom, let them be free to to ask you any kind of question that they want. But if they say no, and no questions, say, all right, are we 100% okay with that? Can we check this off and move on to the next point? So what you're doing is you're closing on the point-by-point piece. First, you get clarity, workable solution. Will that work for you? Is it fit for you? Are there any questions? And are we 100% okay? It's got to be 100% okay. And if so, can we check this one off? That's closing on a point. Match and lead. We talked about this earlier. Can lead somewhere where you have to meet them where they. Yeah, I've got to meet them where they are. To lead somewhere, you have to meet them where they are. So, example I put there is your price is too high. The response is, I appreciate you telling me that. And my guess is that if we can't find a fit on the money side, we won't get the project or the business. When I hear you say our price is too high, high compares to what you had in the budget, higher than you had expected, higher than competitive quotes. Help me on this. So match them where they are. Don't fight them, but lead them to like 1, 2, 3 levels deeper than their statement. Your price is too high. This is not necessarily an objection that needs to be defended. What you're trying to do is to get kind of peel the onion back to find out when you say too high. I appreciate you telling me that. And if we can't find a fit on the money side, I'm sure we're not going to get this business. But when you say our price is too high, help me understand that. Is that compared to what you have in the budget, higher than what you expected, higher than the other quotes you have? Help me understand what you mean by that. So match and lead is not being defensive, it's being more inquisitive. Passing the baton of power, that's, leaving, where'd it go? Passing the baton of power. Here it is, isolating the non-decision maker. So if you want to like pass the baton of power, and if you've got a non-decision maker, So, Joe's a non-decision maker. If I say, hey, Joe, if this decision was yours alone and there was nobody else involved, what would you be doing? Would you be agreeing on timeline, kickoff, agreement? And I have anything other than unequivocal yes is a no. So if you're talking to Joe and Joe's got his boss that he needs to run this thing by, I want to isolate Joe and say, Joe, hey, if this was your decision alone, it was just solely up to you, nobody else was involved, what would you be doing? I want to know, is Joe, the guy I'm dealing with, is he 100% on board with us? Because if he is not 100% on board, there's no way in the world he is going to do a good job selling New Mill to his boss. All right? Now, the rehearsal, so if he says, no, I would go forward with this thing. If it was up to me and me alone, I would absolutely. I'd cut you guys a purchase order and get this stuff ordered and scheduled right away. I'd say, all right, when you talk to the owner and share with him that you've done the due diligence and that you recommend moving forward with New Mill, what do you think he's going to say? So what we want to do is to kind of rehearse with him how he's going to say that when you talk to the owner, and the owner wants to know, like why New Mill and what kind of due diligence did you do? What are you going to tell him? And then he says, well, I'll tell him this, that, and the other thing. And I say, all right, when do you expect to speak with him? So I want to set an upfront contract for the next step. When are you going to speak to him? So Joe, when are you going to speak to Tom? All right, so Tuesday. So when should you and I talk? When should we talk? Tuesday, late day, Wednesday morning. Let's set that in our calendar. So passing the baton of power is another valuable tool to put in the toolbox. Now, a lot of you are aware I covered this three-step defense in those regional sessions that I did. The stroke and assure, sweat, walk away, conditional concession, and counter demand. Stroke and assure. Hey, I appreciate you asking, if we can do better on our pricing. I thought you might. You're a very, very good business person. And then I put a sigh in there. It's like you're letting the breath out. I can assure you, you've looked at this in every possible way. I assure you, it's an excellent pricing for this scope of work. And then the sweat and walkway, and I guess I'm struggling. I know we worked so hard on this. If what you're telling me is I need to be at X to get the business, X is the price, I guess you're telling me that I don't get the business. Is that what you're telling me? So you're going to do the sweat and walk away move here. And then the conditional concession and counter demand, I don't think there's anywhere else to go. I'm willing to fight on your behalf. Let's pretend I go back to management and I can get them to lower this number. To do that, I need to build a business case. I would need, and then you tell them what your counter demand is. I would need a purchase order, some kind of documentation to tell me that we've got it. If I do that, I don't think I will be successful, but if I can, what would happen? Don't send me in there to negotiate on your behalf only to get in and then something else gets in the way of us working together. Please tell me that won't happen. In other words, I will go fight on your behalf, but I have to have something to take in with me of value. So the three-step negotiating or three-step defense move. And then the last two on here is rewriting your beliefs. Rewriting your beliefs. And we've talked about this before. Think about who you need to become in order to achieve your goal. Write this belief down in a present tense statement of fact. Make sure your statement is short, first person, that makes you feel good. No negative words. It must be positive. Stay in a go-to statement, not an away from statement. So make sure it is a positive affirmation. Use emotional words that motivate you in your own language. What actions would you take if you believe this to be true? And then do it regardless of circumstances and regardless of how it makes you feel. And then lastly, journal it. Put it in your daily journal, your daily business diary. And then lastly, that's the journal. That's the part I'm talking about, journaling. Journaling in behavior, attitudes, goals, evaluation, lessons learned, and successes. The acronym there is BAGELS, B-A-G-E-L-S, BAGELS. You want to do this every morning. Have your bagels with your coffee. Write down in your journal what's your behavior for the day. What are my attitude affirmations for the day? What are my goals for today? what's my evaluation of how I did yesterday, the prior day? What are the lessons learned that I picked up from yesterday? And then what successes can I hang my hat on from yesterday? So those of you that hung on the line, it is a 12, holy cow, it's 12:04. I've held you overboard. Maybe I'm making up for I cut you off about 5 minutes early on Monday. So thank you, everybody, very, very much. That's going to be a wrap. If anybody has any comments, questions, please feel free to email me or give me a call. You're welcome. Thank you, Phyllis. But I'm going to sign off. I'll send you these tactics here as soon as we get off the phone. I'll shoot it over to you along with the copy of the recorded version of it. So I'll send the slides and the recording. Everybody have a safe, successful, sound, enjoyable weekend. Take care. See you now.